So in this session, I want to demonstrate an attempted recovery from this Samsung drive. See the model number there. According to the specifications I looked up, this is a two-platter, four-head drive. The video may jump around here and there because I want to demonstrate different aspects of this drive, and there's some time-consuming parts of it and some things I can't demonstrate successively. So let's get started. For reference, here's the smart status. We have a very high reallocated sector count, and there's some pending sectors. The drive suddenly started having issues, according to the owner of the drive. So here's the results, the extended analyze. I just jumped to the extended analyze. You can see that it's got some areas with high read times here. Looks like it gets better towards the end, a little bit worse towards the beginning. Surprisingly, this is a little bit better than when I did this the first time. So we can see there's one bad. Bad is right there, kind of in the first third of the drive. Not a whole lot more to gain from these results. So after the analyzed results, I just clicked start and started the recovery. We see we're 2.5 minutes into it. Watch the read times. They've been bouncing around, well, kind of like that right there. Usually in the hundreds and some thousands. It's initiating some skips. So Samsung is known to have sometimes large data sizes per read section, per head, per platter. So I'm thinking that this is all in one head right here, or ish. So I'm going to show you something a little bit different that you wouldn't normally think to do. I'm going to stop it. I'm going to go into the clone settings, and I'm actually going to take my skip threshold from 1 second down to 1/10 of a second. And we're going to see what happens and see what kind of pattern we get. I know we'll get a pattern because I've already done it. But that's what I'm doing right now. I'm trying to see if I can skip out of the weak head or heads and get into the good part of the drive faster, because the read times are so slow. We can see it says it's going to take 13 hours. Rates barely 3 megabytes a second. So as you can see, it has jumped into a very fast read now. It was reading slow. It did a lot of skips. Suddenly it's reading fast. Look at that. We're in a good head all of a sudden. Just like you see the pattern that this is creating over here for the heads. And it says our last run size was basically 2.7 gig, which is relatively large for most drives, except for Samsung. So as we can see, the pattern is getting kind of interesting over here, and I'll talk about that in a minute. What I did when I set the skip threshold down to 100 milliseconds, or 1/10 of a second, I made it so that instead of requiring an error, of which technically there's not that many right now, 12 bad spots. It was because it was reading slow. By setting the skip threshold down low enough, it skipped just as if it was a bad read when it was reading slow below 1/10 of a second. So we got our 176 skips and 9 skip runs, which has done this, which means it's getting the data from the good head and skipping the bad head, or you'd think heads up here. So I went back and restarted this again with the same setting, with that skip threshold turned down to 100 milliseconds. Look, we got 4 minutes and 56 seconds into it, and we get an error. I had a few of these errors before, and I suppressed them, didn't show them in the video. This drive does throw occasional weird errors. Originally, I tried to clone this on a different computer when I was at work, and the soft and hard resets didn't seem to work right, although they do now. So anyway, just wanted to show that this drive does have some weird errors, and the crazy thing is if I just click OK and then connect and start, it starts going again. So the drive doesn't stay locked up. You can see there the longest read time was 16 seconds. That was the reset timeout of 8 seconds. I should say the soft reset of 8 seconds, and then the reset wait time of 8 seconds, and it went all the way through that before it gave up. So this drive does some interesting things. So now I'm doing another run on this drive. What I did, I changed the soft reset timeout to 80 seconds. The reset wait timeout to 80 seconds, just to make sure that to see what would happen, how long it would go while it was waiting for the drive to recover. And then the general timeout to 600 seconds. So I set everything kind of really high. But you can see here, so if my soft reset time was 80 seconds, then there would have been another 800 milliseconds. There should be a difference here between the soft reset before it did the hard reset. And then it still took almost 3 seconds for the drive to actually respond again. So you can see this drive can have some really long wait times. This is without, with a setting your soft reset timer high. You will also notice that there's something here called a port error. I probably don't even have this in the documentation anywhere. You really don't need to know anything about it, other than the fact that this actually means that there was an AHCI error. The AHCI protocol said something was wrong. If you broke this down into the bits and looked into the AHCI documentation, you could, for the error status, you could find what that means. Really not meaningful to the average user. It just an extra bit of information to show that this drive is responding kind of weird. So originally I showed you that to clone this drive, I changed a clone setting. I turned the skip threshold down to 100. That was because I thought this drive originally did not respond to the soft and hard reset. That's not entirely true. It only locks up under some certain conditions. So instead of doing that, I'm going to go to timer settings, and I'm actually going to say, just for this demonstration, enable the phase timers. I'm going to turn the phase 1 and 2 timer down to 100 milliseconds, so that you can see what happens. It actually is faster this way. So now if I connect and start, we can see it's hitting soft resets really fast. It's not hitting the hard reset, which means, it hit one hard reset. Then it hit another one. For the most part, the soft reset is working, and the drive is responding within, 100 and, about 150, a little under 150 milliseconds. It looked like the average was there. That is, say, 100 millisecond timeout, and then it's taken close to 50 milliseconds to respond to it and recover. Now we can see we've already skipped out. Look at what we skipped right here. We've already skipped into the good spot. The difference with this is, compared to the other mode, first, it's faster because we made sure that it's skipping as soon as it hits 100 milliseconds, and then it's doing soft reset. So you're in the under 200 millisecond range. Oh, that's exactly what I was looking for something else. The second thing is, it is, instead of the way we did it before, a lot of those reads were good, and you saw a big black area up here with none of these non-trimmed areas. Well, setting the skip reset makes it so that these, so that when it skips like that, I shouldn't say skip, when it times out like that, it's making a non-trimmed area which has to come back and be read again. That's the downside of it. Those areas are considered failed reads because it didn't take long enough to finish the read. It did did the soft reset timeout, did a soft reset, and then continued on. It makes it faster, but there's, that data has to come back and be read again in later passes if desired. So now let's talk about this. Source drive reports wrong size changed. The other message was that I think it didn't respond to identify. Anyway, this drive has a tendency to lock up. So even the soft reset, and it didn't even go to a hard reset. Well, I'm not even sure. But so even a soft reset and a hard reset doesn't necessarily make it so this drive doesn't lock up. So I'm going to click OK on this. I just want to see something. Just the rescue has stopped. Oh, it didn't give me a longer time. So the drive didn't quit responding. The interesting thing is if I just hit connect again and start, it takes right off. Now I'm going to hit a stop because I want to show something. So I didn't have to power cycle it. So it wasn't truly locked up. The interesting thing about that is that has been consistent with this drive. No matter how, if I can set the soft reset time a lot higher, there will be spots that, this will go up to 70, 80 seconds. I think there were 70 seconds. I think the drive a few times has recovered itself, but the point is that I can set a really long time and it'll still wait that whole long time, which is why I originally thought that this drive wasn't responding properly to the soft resets because I wasn't there paying attention to it when I was initially trying to recover it. So I found a really weird trick that works with this, and it works because with this drive, if it locks up with any sort of message, locks up, says it's not responding properly, it's the equivalent of hitting stop and disconnect. And then when I go to start it back up again, it's the equivalent of hitting connect and start. So in my advanced settings, action to perform on a major drive error, if I check call command and do something so simple as a sleep 1, which is a shell command that just say sleep for 1 second, and I can test the command to see that it works. And it says, it commuted normally. So you see it kind of paused for 1 second. So I'm going to click OK on that. And then I'm going to click start again, and we're going to let this go. And we're going to see what happens. Oh, before I do that, I want to mention this. See this port error? It's a little bit different. There were some other different value for the port error. This isn't probably in the documentation anywhere that I remember putting in, but you see something like that, a port error, that means there's actually an AHCI error. It wasn't necessarily that the drive had a bad sector or a bad read, but there was actually some sort of weird communication error. The drive didn't respond properly. So you don't need to worry about what this means. Just seeing it is an indication that the drive is doing something abnormally weird. So we're going to start again, and I'll come back and see what happens. Okay, so I had to restart this in phase 4, so there was no skipping, so I could get into a bad enough spot to show what happened. The only thing I changed, I made only put it in phase 4, and I just did that change where I told it to call a command of sleep 1 when it had a bad error. We can see it happened here. So we had a soft reset, a hard reset, then it did it again because it was trying to get the identify command. If we look at the timing here, we see it, the longest read time is 16.8 seconds, which is 8 seconds for the soft reset timeout, 800 milliseconds to get to the hard reset, and then another 8 seconds for the reset wait time. So it was going to pop up that error like it did before, where it said the drive was no longer responding. But for some reason, calling the sleep command, which stopped it, disconnected, and then reconnected, and then started, basically, I did see it hang for a few seconds after that while it was waiting for the drive to become ready, but it wasn't that long, and look, it worked. The command completed successfully. It set the DMA mode, which is something it has to do after every time it disconnects, and it's back working again without having to power cycle the drive. The error never popped up. It's a very odd thing. I've never seen this before. It's the first time I have, but it's something you can try if you get into a scenario where you find that you get a message pop up, it stops responding, the drive stops, you close it, but then you can start again without having to power cycle it. This is something you can try.